Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. We're almost done with Oculus Connect. It's exciting. Congratulations on getting this far. You should give yourselves a big hand. Come on. It's been an exciting conference for all of us. Anyway, you might have seen me yesterday. My name is Ruth Bram. I'm a producer on the Oculus Studios team. I joined in 2014 prior to our move to Facebook, when it was just 3 of us, myself, our head of studios, Steve Arnold, and the late David DeMartini, whom you knew as well.
Yes.
We were a small team, but we had a big vision, and part of that vision was early on to create a welcoming ecosystem for developers of all sorts, big, small, no matter where they were in the world. So we built strong relationships with these devs that pioneered game development, and we also welcomed a bunch of new devs to the fold as well. But we still believe that there is infinite potential yet to be discovered. So I brought someone here very special with us, Robin Hunicke. Thank you for being here. She is going to be talking about the incredibly diverse studio that she's built, her design philosophies, and building her first game for the Oculus Rift. So thank you, Robin, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Guys, come on. This is Robin Hunicke. She's awesome.
Don't make me blush.
Now, I think a lot of you actually know her personally or know of her. But I'd like to personally share a few things that I admire of you. The first one being that you've been a key part of some incredible games, including my Journey, My Sims, Boom Blocks, and Luna. Do you have a favorite?
We practiced this the other day. I have different favorites for different reasons, and I guess I would say that Journey is the one that connects me to the most people. So that's the one that everybody knows and comes up to me to talk to me about. And then I don't know, my first game job was working on The Sims as an object designer, and I really liked just playing The Sims all day. So that was my favorite job. I didn't have anybody to boss around or worry about. It was just me. So it was pretty cool.
You're a professor of game design at UC Santa Cruz. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Do you teach undergrads or grads?
Both, actually.
Right.
So I'm actually currently the head of the Arts, Games, and Playable Media program, which is the undergraduate program that I designed and founded and built from scratch there, which is one of the fastest growing undergraduate majors on campus, which is a real great success. But I'm also the director of the Digital Arts and New Media program, which is an MFA program for graduate students. It's a 2-year program that pays a year's tuition, so it's a pretty amazing program, and I'm actually just introducing my first new cohort there this year. Yeah.
I wish I was still in school so I could take one of your classes. That would be incredible. You are also a huge supporter of indie game devs and women in games.
That's true.
Which is fantastic. You were the first female to host the GDC Awards twice.
That's right. Abby Heavy was actually the first woman to host it, but I have hosted it twice in a row, and it gets easier every time because you have to write your own jokes, and that takes a lot of practice. So, yeah.
She also co-founded, and you run an incredibly diverse studio. Can you give us a quick snapshot of the team?
Yeah, the team at Funomena, we're 26 people plus myself and Martin who co-founded it, and yesterday was actually our 6-year anniversary. So we've been 6 years old. Yeah,
that's exciting.
It's really an accomplishment, and yeah, we pride ourselves on being a majority non-cis white male in the studio. We work really hard to bring lots of different types of people into the studio, and also we have a really nice group of people that have come through the studio and then moved on to other places. So a lot of people come to us, work with us for a few years, and then they follow their bliss, whether that's working, for example, for Magic Leap, or coming to work at Oculus, or going off and starting their own studio. So we have a affiliated group of people that's really fantastic as well.
Now, to add to all of this and more, you've joined the Oculus Club.
That's
and
right.
You launched your first, I might add, award-winning title, Luna. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, most devs have a set of assumptions when it comes to game design, but you guys take a new approach. You just completely throw out the rule book, which is unique. and it's allowed you to do a lot of cool things, especially in VR. So you've also designed for a lot of different platforms.
It's true.
And that's influenced your design philosophy. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, Funomena, when we first started, we wanted to build a company that could explore the boundaries of game design. Martin and I had actually been on the road accepting awards for Journey, and, we were sort of talking about, like, well, what do we want our studio to be, and what would we like to build? And we're both really fascinated by systems and computer science. I'm actually a computer scientist by training. And so we wanted to work on stuff that was really on the edge.
Yeah.
And with a game like Journey, you can take the camera, you can pan the camera to a place, and then draw the eye there, and you can build these beats. Kind of like what Sam was talking about earlier, there's just a lot of different ways to design when you're looking at an immersive technology like a headset, especially with the hand track controllers. Yeah. And so we really focus at the company on partnering with people like Oculus in a way that allows us to develop the best possible unique content for the device at hand. And I was explaining to Ruth earlier that one of the reasons we like doing this is because it means that the development feels like a co-development, and so the partnership is really, it's like we're on the ground with you developing the hardware and like thinking about the SDK and giving feedback about like, this is what will make it easier to do this experiences. And when we talk about like, okay, well, what are the current limitations and how can we beat those limitations? What are the tricks we can do? It really feels like a conversation among peers. And that's something that is really fantastic, I think, about doing the kind of work we do, is that we get to be with you on that journey. It's not just like, we picked it up at the store and then started to develop for it and then called you and we're like, hey, it doesn't do X,
That's
we
what
have
we
a conversation.
Love about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we learn and we grow with you. I mean, we definitely come in and say, oh, these are our best practices and we think you should do this, but in the end, we leave it up to you and let you guys tell us what you think. So that's important.
It is, and I think it's also really exciting because you get to test yourself against interaction designs that haven't been made yet. So when you first see something like a new technology, it gives you ideas, and then you can ask yourself, okay, how does game design work here? But you also have to ask yourself, well, what hasn't been done yet, right? And that's really exciting.
Yeah. So what actually got you into VR? Why VR? Why even get into this crazy world?
This crazy world of VR. So actually, my first experience with the VR headset was with Ottman Binstock, who works here at Oculus now. He was actually at Valve at the time, and I walked in to see this room demo, and it was just going to be like a, hey, I'm really busy, can you come by? I was up at PAX, and so I popped by Valve. And I ended up staying at the office for about 6 hours, just talking with him about the potential of immersive technologies and like sort of spatial computing and the idea of like these engagements outside of your reality. And I got completely fascinated by the idea of building a VR title. And in fact, that was how I met Dimar, because shortly after that, I pitched a title to Dimar and Steve. We didn't end up working on that specific title for a variety of reasons, but I've actually been kind of working on that idea for the last 5 years, and my next game is actually that game. So I think about Dimar a lot, actually. One of the things that was really fascinating to me about that initial demo was the sense of scale. Mm-hmm. It was so compelling. It was a single, it's just a headset with, basically had some tracking, but you had to stand still. But in the experience, you were moving through this 4K demo, and as it was moving past you and you looked around, it was kind of like a spaceship concept. It was a procedurally generated thing. I just thought, wow, like if I could get people to feel this, that would be so cool. Like
you have, definitely have.
Yeah.
A lot of people going into VR for the first time have some of the same sort of challenges with UI and interaction and navigation. So you've been there, you've done that.
That's true. Yeah.
Looking back, if you can, because you've already come so far, what were some of the early design challenges that you faced that might be useful to some of the folks in the audience today?
Yeah, I think what we were talking about a little bit earlier when Sam was up here, she was mentioning that the hand controllers are difficult. That's if you design backwards to them. I think designing forwards for them, they're really like an amazing opportunity to create the sense of place and touching in an experience, and Luna was really focused on this because we were so blown away by the way that the hand track controllers worked. And you know, I've given talks about how we wanted to improve the feeling of delicacy in Luna, like that there's a power grip, which is the way that you grip a handle on a hammer or the grips of the actual controllers, and we wanted you to have a precision grip, like basically like a paintbrush or a conductor's wand. And so we built the hands in Luna to be graspers like this, and then we use the index trigger as a way of getting you to be more delicate. A lot of the challenges that we had were around sort of designing for those affordances. Once we knew we wanted to do that, then everything else in the game had to kind of match those feelings, right? And then there's, you know, obviously there's the head. You know, they can put their head inside of a character and see the inside of its render, which is bizarro, right? And so we deliberately designed the experience to start with you looking up at the stars and kind of interacting with the stars, and then looking down into the bowl and like sort of placing things in the little terrarium. And then finally we take you down inside the terrarium and you look out at all of your creations and the characters are right there in front of you. And the idea was that we wanted to keep people from being rude in the cutscenes, you know, like at the very beginning of the game when people see the owl and the bird, the first thing they do is stick their head into them. You know? Like, and they put their hands in. It's like
they try to break it, as we all do the first time.
It's a lot of poking. So we tried to design the experience for a lot of stroking, actually, like a lot of petting and touching, so that when you finally got down into the space and saw the characters, you would feel a sense of intimacy and connection with them, and you wouldn't necessarily just like poke them in the face. And what happens is, as you watch people play the demo over and over and over, is that first scene in the game, I'm always like, oh, there's still a little bit too much poking going on, and I have to let myself relax and understand that this is where players are when they start the game. Whenever they start an experience in VR with hand track controllers, they're just going to do this. You can't take it completely away. But that was a big part of the challenge, was to slowly build this body awareness and the sense of respect for the space, so that the characters could emote in a way that was resonant with kids and people.
It did really well. Like I said, it's not every day that your first VR experience becomes an award-winning title.
No, that's true.
You seem to have done it right the first time, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think you did it right the first time?
Oh,
Is there anything that you could do that would apply to your next VR game?
Yeah, no, I really am my worst critic. I was talking with Mike Bithell about this at DICE Europe. I really feel that there are a lot of things about Luna that if I could have worked on it forever, I would. Like, I would just never release it. I would want it to be perfect. I'm a fine artist as well. I make sculptures and paint and stuff, and I have a hard time letting anything go. I just really do. But
speaking of your office. Yes. So many incredible things in your office that I just want to pick up and play with.
It's true. I'm actually, I love to curate and collect objects, and I'm I'm a sparkle nut. I let just anything that has interesting qualities. I'm like, oh, I need this. Like, I need this gramophone. Yeah. I need this old typewriter. No, I do. It has to come with me on my journey. But I feel like the thing that we got at in Luna is the sense of intimacy with a virtual object. Like, that was the problem I wanted to solve, was how does a virtual thing or a virtual character feel real enough to you that you have an emotional connection to it. It wasn't perfect, but I think we got really close with that, and that a lot of the nature of my earlier research in VR has been about getting close to the object itself. And now what I'm interested in is hands. I'm really interested in how hands behave. I watch people pick things up all the time now. I'm really interested in hand posing and thinking about how objects move in your hands, and even just the quality of, like, if you bend to pick up a rock, you know, you will pick it up a certain way, but if you bend down to pick up a beetle, you know, you'll be gingerly indifferent in a different way. And like how our bodies, just even in our hands, how they communicate. So I'm really interested in that space. And I'm also really interested in the sense of scale. Like, Luna definitely was like, you look up, you look down, and then you're in it. And the sense of scale is interesting in changing scale from being as big as the stars to as small as, like, the bird itself is a cool transition. But now I'm really interested in sort of more grandiose scale. I want to, in our next title, I want to build out the sense of space and, like, understanding and like almost like excavation. Like I like this idea of like feeling like you've discovered more and more, and that is reflected in the space that you're in, if that makes sense. It will when you see the game, but it won't make sense right now, maybe.
How many of you have actually played Luna?
Wow.
Oh, sweet. So a number of people. Jeez. Great. How many of you want to play Luna? That's cool. Okay.
Well, it's easy to find.
On the Oculus store.
That's
Go
right,
get it after this. Or talk to Robin. Maybe you'll give him a code. Shh. Shh. And you didn't say that. Okay, so I'd like to change the topic a little bit now.
Sure.
And focus on your team, because you have built this incredibly diverse team.
Yeah.
So can you share more about your team for Luna and the foundation on which you've built Funomena? Yeah,
so Martin and I founded the company in late 2011, early 2012. The first awesome day was September 26, 2012. And when we were building out the team, we really weren't sure how to hire people. Right? Like, I mean, we'd been in teams and made hires, but when you're building your own team from scratch, it's like, well, what's a good hire like? And so for a while, we actually worked with people as consultants, and we would collaborate with them, and like most of the people that were working on our stuff had to have other jobs because we didn't have enough capital to like bring people on full time. But as we started to get more contracts and then finally get funding and bring people in, we were getting closer and closer to the idea that the best hire for Funomena is someone who is deliberately developmental, someone who's flexible. We really hire for openness and communication style. And the idea that we have is that as Martin and I, as co-founders, this is the first time we've ever done our job, so we're probably not going to be perfect at it. And we should be able to sort of say that out loud when we're, stressed or tired or overwhelmed or don't know what to do. We shouldn't feel like we have to pretend that we're better at our jobs than we are, right?
Sure.
And so we try to hire people that are similarly flexible, who know how to ask for help, who know how to give help, or to say, you look like you need a day off. Because obviously when you're working on your passion projects, you feel connected to them. You want to stay with them the whole time. And so Glenn Hernandez is the concept artist and art director on Luna. When he came to work with us, Glenn and I worked really closely on a lot of the narrative and design stuff. And then as we hired Elise and Elena, and then we brought in Scott Anderson, who actually works at Oculus now, and Greg and Eddie to come in and kind of round out the team, we were really in a place where we had sort of from scratch built a community that was focused on talking about feelings. And so the game, which is really about letting go of difficult things, I think it attracted the kind of people that are interested in talking about, well, what is it like to live with a trauma, or what is it like to face some kind of microaggressions, or to feel like to have left your home and come to live here, like Eddie's from Venezuela. Like, what is it like to be living someplace far away from your family, especially if your family's in crisis? Like, what is that like? So I think we built a team that was very sensitive and open to the idea of communicating, and that's kind of rippled out around us. And so the rest of the people that have been attracted to come to work at Funomena tend to be these kinds of people. It's a safe space. We try to be really collaborative. And the process that we have really engages everyone. So there's no such thing as really someone who's just a designer at Funomena. Everyone's a designer. And so we're very collaborative in our process. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's true.
So we talk a lot about, in everywhere we go, just diversity. We need diversity in our teams. But why? So can you tell us why that is so important? Because
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the reasons I was mentioning, if we have a team that includes people of color and queer folks and people who have lived in different places, grown up in different places all around the world, what that means is that when we're trying to make something for everyone else, we really are genuinely making it for everyone else. We're making it for people that don't live in the United States. There's not a lot of language in Luna for a reason. I mean, when I made the game, I wanted to give it to girls in China China and Russia and Turkey, and I want them to play it and let go of traumas and things that have troubled them and become game designers, right? Like my secret goal, which is not secret at all, is that there are way, 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 way more female game designers on the planet. Like right now, if you try to, in your mind, imagine like there's myself and Samantha and Amy Hennig, and then you start to go down the list, and it's like after a while, maybe you could get past 10 fingers of people that you can think of that have been on stages announcing big games and that kind of stuff. But it's not that many, you know, and it's been a long time. I've been making games for 20 years, and I'm ready for there to be just a huge wave of female CEOs and designers. And so I think that in order to make games for them and all the other folks that should be standing up here on stage, we need to really engage with a community of people, not just a single type of person. And so I think it makes business sense. I think if you want to make something that appeals broadly, you have to think about everyone, and I know that Facebook feels that way, Absolutely. And I know that that Google feels that way, and they're not doing too bad. So, if you look at Apple, I'm pretty sure that they have a pretty diverse team of people at Apple working on these designs, right? So, like, if you think about diversity as a concept, and like, oh, we need these looking people or these acting people or this kind of thing represented on our team, that's not really what it is. It's a process. Yeah. It's a process of including people's opinions and listening and being open to change. I make mistakes all the time. I'm just like anybody else.
We all do.
Yeah. And it's about being aware and trying to listen and look differently. I love traveling. I just got off this really long road trip where I'm pitching my game around. If you want to give me $25 million, just come see me at the end of at the end of the. I'm totally willing to work with you. But I've been pitching, and so I've been on the road, and I've been all over Europe, and I went to Europe a couple times, came back to the States, spent time down in Miami, and like I just love being away from things for a while, and just seeing and watching people and getting a sense of like, well, what are people like in Copenhagen? What are people like in Nice? It's an interesting experience, and I think the more I work at Funomena in the sense of working at making it a thing, like I consider it a process itself, the more just really, really crucial to that process this kind of inclusion and diversity is. I don't think you could separate it from us now. I just don't, yeah.
Do you think, is there ways we can design our games that would appeal to a more diverse crowd as well?
Yes, actually, I think that the number one thing for a game like Luna, which is experience, you can call it a game, we designed it for first generation VR users, people that would be awkward in VR. And put the headset on, all sort of stuff. Sometimes it's very intimidating. The number one thing you can do to make space for people is to literally have space, to give them opportunities to be in your experience where they can choose to do something or not do something. A lot of games are like, go, go, go. Like from the minute that you get in, it's like, all right, grunt, get your weapon. We're gonna get on the thing. Oh my God, now we're getting assaulted. Quick, do the tutorial where you kill the giant robot. Whew, made it. And like that's awesome. But it's awesome if you've played a lot of games because you're like excited, right? You're loading the game and you're like, pretty sure we're gonna get right into the shit, But if you're someone who hasn't played games a lot, it's really a lot. It's just a lot. Right. Oh my Lord, Like if you've ever done like any of these immersive VR experiences, like The Void, like I've done them with people that are gamers, and I've done them with people that are not gamers, and like it's really intimidating to suddenly have to shoot Darth Vader in the face. Like it's intense, Like it's a lot, So I think really it's about giving people some time to acclimatize, which is the other reason why there is this like long scene at the beginning of Luna, is that like if I just drop you into the game, you have no idea what to do. You will literally just do this and then get frustrated. Right. So there need to be little steps or on-ramps,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I have some more questions for Robin, but I do want to mention that we would like to take Q&A from you guys.
We will.
So if you want to start making your way to the microphone right here, we'll take your questions.
I love questions.
Just a little bit. So, I mentioned earlier that Oculus continues to be a welcoming environment.
Yeah, totally.
For developers of all sorts. And you've had firsthand experience with this.
It's true.
With Launchpad.
Yeah, and also A&V, which Amplifying New Voices, which Ebony mentioned in the inclusion lunch actually yesterday. So I've spoken at Launchpad, I think twice in a row now, maybe 3 times, I can't remember. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite events. I really love it because it's a really diverse group of people, but in particular, it's very much about like acknowledging the that we all have to kind of collaborate and work together as a community in order to change just the way that games look from the outside and the way the games are from the inside. And I think both with Amplifying New Voices and Launchpad, you know, what's been so great for me is the ability to be truly honest with people about my experiences. You know, like I'm a rape survivor, and I also like have experienced a lot of sexual harassment in my life. Not all of it in my adult life, most of it, you know, earlier. But like I really think it's important to like be able to be part of a community and to be honest. And like I love Deb's talk yesterday actually, where she gave a really great talk at the Inclusion Lunch too, where she acknowledged that she'd been in a relationship that was not very good, and that games had helped her get through that. And like that's really brave, you know. And so one of the things I like about these events is that you can be honest about who you are and where you come from, and you can say like I made Luna to process this trauma and like let it go and like learn how to take something that was like kind of sitting around in my belly and just set it free, right? Like that's an important thing to tell people, but it's especially important to tell people that are young and that are used to feeling different, because it's so easy to look on stage and be like, well, Robin and Ruth sure got it going on, you know, they know everything, and they're so poised and they're so polished, but we totally fucking practice this, you know, like we are not just like flawless, you know, we all have to show up and be ourselves. And I think that these events give us an opportunity to be authentic and genuine, and then as we do that, it's more comfortable for me to be authentic and genuine to all of you here, you know? So it's like we practice this behavior together in smaller, safer groups, and then we can practice it in the large. And I think that that's really what changes the industry, in my opinion.
Are there any inclusion events that you're a part of or attending that you'd like to share with the audience, or are you guys hiring?
Yeah. Well, so Amplifying New Voices will be accepting. They'll be accepting submissions probably towards the end of this year. And what that effectively is we give you a free pass to go to GDC, and then we also bring you in for a day of media training ahead of time. And so we focus on mid-career professionals who are starting to step up and be on stages, giving them the opportunity to learn how to speak effectively from a place of authenticity without lots of ums and ahs and that kind of stuff, which is basically where everyone starts. And so I think usually submissions open in November, but there'll be stuff out on the Oculus blog, and obviously we'll post all that out on the Twitters as well. And then also Experimental Gameplay Workshop is a session that I curate at GDC, and it's where we show 20-ish experimental games in about 2 hours, sometimes 3. And we usually get around 250, 300 submissions for those slots, so it's very competitive, but I always encourage everyone to send in their weird experimental prototypes. And typically what we ask you to do is send us the stuff that you think is really pushing game design in a new direction. And those submissions are actually open right now because we want to be global, and we want to make sure that people have time to get visas. So we're actually reviewing those all through the year this year, as opposed to we used to just only do it over Christmas, but now we're doing it, over the whole year. So submit. Funomena will be hiring. As I mentioned, I'm pitching a big game. So when that game gets greenlit and all of our budgets are locked in, we'll definitely be hiring, and we're going to be looking for people, especially in AI and some animation stuff. So keep your eyes peeled on the Funomena site for that. Yeah.
Great. I think we'll take the first question now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Robin. I'm a Launchpad member.
Yay.
Also, we're studying your work at the NYU Game Center.
Yeah.
Game design.
They're great.
My question is, can you talk more about Luna's sound design and key decisions behind it?
Oh, yeah. I actually, let me take a drink.
It's a good one.
I love having a microphone on. It makes everything so fun. I'd beatbox into it, but that would be bad. So so our sound designer Brad Foch is one of my favorite people on the whole planet. He's like the soul of Funomena in many ways because he works on every single project and he composes a lot of the music for our games and also works really hard on the sound designs. And Luna, just like Watam and all the other titles that we work on, really the sound design is so integral. Brad usually starts thinking about sound design from the day one on the project, and the way that he thinks about it is he builds prototypes. And for Luna, he built a lot of physical prototypes. He gave a small talk about it at Experimental Gameplay Workshop last year. So if you look up the video, you can see him talking about it with me, showing off the different prototypes that we made. But effectively, because we knew Luna was going to be tactile and there was going to be a lot of hands interacting with things, he spent a lot of time looking at sound sculptures and the ways in which wind-driven and water-driven sound sculptures made sounds and how they could work so that we could build physical toys into the space of Luna that respond with audio. And if you play it, Luna has a lot of little things in it that most people don't notice. For example, if you put flowers down on the landscape, you get little tulips, but if you put them down in the water, you get lily pads. And you can play the lily pads like little musical notes, kind of. And then if you put enough lily pads down, you get frogs, and if the frogs bump into each other, you get tadpoles. So there's lots of little tiny things like that. And Brad contributes just as many of those ideas as he does sound, because he's always thinking about the space of the project. So he's fantastic. And no, you can't poach him. We've been working together since Boom Blocks, and I think that when you work on sound, like I worked with Austin Wintry really closely on Journey, on the soundtrack for Journey, and he also did the soundtrack for Luna. And in those kinds of contexts, when you're working with a composer, you say, okay, well here's the game, and I want you to kind of build a score to go around it. For Luna, I actually challenged Austin not to do that. So because Luna was such a personal game for me, and it was about something so personal and important to me, I wanted the score to be about something personal and important to Austin. And about 6 months, maybe a year into the process, his father passed away. And so I asked him to use this as an opportunity to write a score that was about that relationship. And he had a really hard time writing the music, I'll be totally honest. It took a very long time for him to start working on it. And when he finally did write the score, he wrote it on a single piano. He went into a room at a friend's house and recorded most of the music in one go. And it was because he had been thinking a lot about grief and letting go of his dad. And I think that, on a game like Luna or on a game like Journey, if you can work really closely with someone, whether it's a composer or a sound designer, you can build something really beautiful. I think the score for Luna is amazing. It's so personal to him, and yet it fits with the piece in a way that's really nice. So I'm a huge fan of audio folks. I think that they're really what glues together interactivity. If it doesn't make a sound when you touch it, it's like it didn't happen, And so I think they should all be paid a lot more. Thanks for the question, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have a question about the thing you said about having the chance to be in a game where you don't do nothing. I remember this book that maybe I think is Hamlet at the Holodeck.
Yeah, that's Janet's book. I know her. Yeah.
Exactly, and she was talking about this chapter in Star Trek where Captain Janeway in Star Trek, she's playing like Jane Eyre, and she just wants to stay there, like playing with the kids or staring at the window. So I was thinking that maybe that's a way that we can also capture some audience out there that they want just to relax.
Oh yeah,
be in an environment, no?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, Journey is a game that you walk from one place to another in, and you hang out with someone sometimes, maybe, I mean, I'm so, and look at Flower, right? I'm so into these kinds of games. The next title that I'll be working on, this big one, is really about that in a fundamental way. I really believe that people should be able to hang out together in a space where they're just hanging out. And if they want to do stuff, great, but they shouldn't have to. It's nice to just go with your friend to a cafe and sit down and have a cup of coffee and look at people. People like doing that. I would love to do that in a game. And so I've really been, like I said, I've been on the road pitching it, so it's written in the back of my brain now. I feel like I can see it on the back of my eyelids. But I'm so ready to make that space and to build that space for people, and for it to be something that people can enjoy truly with one another. I love to play hardcore games, but I also just like to chill with people. It's nice, people are cool. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000%, a Google %.
Thank you for it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Chris. I'm an indie developer working on experimental competitive game for VR.
Cool.
And I guess I have a million questions, but the one I've picked is I'm curious as to if you have any insights on making the jump from being a solo dev to like building a team, particularly like when you're on a budget, and on top of that, like you're a gameplay/systems designer, and your work doesn't screenshot maybe as great as like a very artistically talented or skilled person.
Sure. I think the number one thing is to pick people that work with your style, and you have to sort of learn that by trying. It's kind of a Pandora's box hiring in general. Like, nobody really, it's like a relationship, you just don't know where it's going to go. And so you have to be okay with saying, this isn't working for me. And you also have to be okay with being like, I'm sorry that I don't work for you. Like, you need to be open to the idea that not everybody can work with you, and that also you can't work with everyone. And then once you accept that, then it's like, fine. You work with some people, you try it out. Especially if you're bootstrapped, they're going to have to be passionate about what you're building. And so the best way to meet people, to hire them, is to talk about what you do. And to go to events and to meet people like here and say like, oh yeah, I'm working on this thing, and find the little people like in your area that are magnetized to that idea. It helps if you are a part of a community that plays games like the ones you're working on. Like if you're doing a competitive game and you're really into, say, LOL, then find some LOL players and talk about it. I think that one of the things that we do most often as designers that's a disservice to ourselves is to hold on to our ideas and not talk about them with other people because we're afraid that they're going to say they're dumb. Or worse, there's the like super arrogant designer who's like, well, I can't tell you about my idea because then you're going to want to build it. Like I'm not sure I will. I mean that's maybe, but you don't really know me. And so I think that talking about what you're working on, like in a forum like this, getting up on the mic and asking that question. Smart.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's just about putting yourself out there, but also just be flexible and be willing to let things not work out, because not everything works out. Most relationships don't work out, just in general. And really long friendships are hard to find. So yeah, and I guess that would be the last thing is just like if you do meet someone like a Brad, or a Martin, or an Eddie, like if you meet someone who's just really gels with you, then like you got to be grateful for that, and you got to support that relationship and like really get it.
Awesome.
Also,
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just
Good
a quick
luck.
thought on that. Oculus has classroom office hours. And so if you go to our office hours,
that's a good
even
idea.
sharing your story with them is really helpful because we know a lot of developers and we love connecting developers with each other.
Smart.
So I would encourage you to do
That's
that. And
going on right now?
It's still happening, yeah.
Awesome.
I think until 4, so go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Run.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Brady Thomas, a freelance 3D artist interested in VR, AR stuff. So my question had to do with this fact that, not just in games, but in a lot of media, there's this kind of set idea of like, what is universal? What is a universal accepted game? And everything that falls outside of that, which happens often to coincide with something outside of, straight white male experience
Exactly.
is kind of deemed as niche.
Right.
And it's
Or
something,
art. That's
Yeah.
the other word we use.
Yep.
So artistic.
Yes.
Nice.
So as someone
It'll never
who's-
make money.
And I feel like that's something that you kind of have to unlearn a little bit.
Yeah.
So my question then in that line is, I have a couple interesting project ideas, but I still kind of sometimes get stuck in that mindset of, oh, this is too niche, this is too not universally appealing, all that. And so how how do you get over that? How do you give yourself
That's a really good
the ability to think?
I mean, look at me. I'm not universally appealing. I'm like, I've lived my life trying to be, true to my purpose and be honest with people, just as a person. There's a point in your life, and maybe, you'll get there like in 50 years when you're as old as me, but there's a point where you realize, like, you have to follow your heart. You have to follow your bliss, right? Like, when I made Luna, I didn't make it for anybody else. I made it for myself, and like, I made it for my team, and I made it, for the company. I made it to build something that was representative of our values. And like, it isn't universally appealing, and that's fine. Like, if your goal is to build a game that will be a blockbuster hit and knock it out of the park, and you're gonna get to buy Notch's house from him, you're gonna be so rich, you're gonna make $3 billion. If that's your goal, then you probably shouldn't be making video games. Like, that is just really, it's a funny joke because it's like, that's never gonna happen again. And then like headlines are like, Ruth's company gets bought for $3 billion. Or like, but I mean, like, if you really want to make something that expresses yourself, then go for it. Itch is out there. The iOS, Android marketplace is flooded with individual titles that are, people made them just to make them. Like, games are an art form, which means that anyone can make them now and release them. And like, I was on a panel actually at Games for Change with, it wasn't a panel, I was on stage with Ian Bogos. He was introducing me. And he had just given a talk, and he said, games are for everyone now, which means everyone can make games, which means it's going to be really hard for you to make money making games. And that was like 7 years ago. He's like clairvoyant, he's a philosopher, and like he's a very smart person. I was like, oh shit, you're right, that's true. That's just the way it is, Like, if you really want to make something, make it. It'll find the people that it needs to find, I hope. There's definitely discoverability issues. There's definitely like, it's hard to get up over the fold and all those things. But if you do it for yourself, you'll feel good. It just feels nice to paint the picture you want to paint.
To add to that, I mentioned earlier that there is infinite potential yet to be discovered. There hasn't been a one-hit wonder, right? I mean, you can do so many things with VR, and a lot of developers come up to me and say, what do I build? What genre should I shoot for? And my answer over and over again is keep experimenting, because it doesn't matter what you build, the potential is there. So just please bring us whatever you have. We are all ears and eyes.
Totes.
Thank
you. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, my name's Stacy, and I work for a VR and AR company, and we have primarily business and enterprise clients. We're a small team. We're about 8 people. I'm currently the only full-time female, so my question for you is around hiring diverse teams.
Yeah, sure.
It's something we want to do, but unfortunately, being in North Carolina, we're not exactly Silicon Valley, so the talent that we have available in the area, especially who may be interested in this kind of stuff, we don't get the volume of diverse applicants that we want to.
Nobody does.
How do we find them? How do we get them?
This is everyone that asks me this question starts with that problem, and that particular problem of we don't get the applicants. No one gets the applicants because they're not really looking to join your all-white game team.
Right.
I mean, like, it's just the truth, like, right? Like, why would you? Like, if you were like a really cool girl from Costa Rica that was a super awesome artist, you would be like, I'm gonna go work at Pixar, or whatever, because you've seen the films that they put out. You've seen the women that, like, the woman that wrote Brave, although unfortunately that's a sad one. But there's women out there in other industries doing this. Like, it's the same thing with film. People are like, I wonder why there are so few female directors. Well, geez, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right? What you have to do is you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to hire people that won't move and work with them remotely and bring them in once a month. You need to go to events where you are on stage and talking about your company and your values and with authentic, heart. And then they will come to you from the audience. You need to be able to solicit resumes in places that aren't traditional, and also to be willing to hire people that don't come from games. Not everybody that works at Funomena has worked in games. In fact, Greg, who I mentioned earlier, our technical director, had worked in games, our technical artist, had worked in games and then went away and was in software for a long time and came back to games because he was curious and missed it. and then he went back to software. So like, not everybody should look like the people that you work with, but also their backgrounds and where they're working from should maybe not all be the same either. So I think just really open up your idea of what a successful hire is to include a lot broader set of things, because you can't just generate those resumes. It doesn't happen. And like I've had the same conversation with Rob Pardo, who is running Bonfire, and that's a huge like VC-backed like MMO, company, right? Like he's famous, and he has the same problem that you do. So I think everyone has this problem. Funomena has it too. We look harder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have 30 seconds left. I was about to say 30 minutes. 30 seconds left.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Oh my God.
Yeah. Can we take one more question, please?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Charles.
Hi, Charles.
And I'm currently prototyping something with experimental game design. Journey is a huge inspiration.
Oh, thanks.
So thank you for that. And what I wanted to ask was, when it comes to creating a game that goes in a new direction, doesn't follow like traditional gameplay tropes, how do you ascertain whether or not your game is fun?
You put it in front of other people and watch them fail at it. A lot. We do work on experimental hardware, so in some cases we get into places where we're working on something and we can't test it as publicly as we would like to, but in the cases that we can, we're always bringing people into the office and putting them in front of it. And it's like there's nothing like the gut punch of seeing someone not get something over and over and over to realize it's not fun. And then when something is fun, it's usually, the sand surfing in Journey is a perfect example. Like, Journey was really boring for a long time, and the sand surfing went in, and it wasn't boring anymore. It was just like, wow, that's fun. We should keep that. And so I think it's just about, honestly, looking at the game through other people's eyes, and then occasionally listening to yourself when it feels good.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much,
Those
everybody.
Were great questions. Robin and I will be at the back if you have any following questions. But thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Thank you.
And congrats on an awesome Connect.